NDCs, and you quietly at the end. I'm really excited to have this event to talk with everyone about the importance of NDCs, including how they affect our future as young people, but also how you can engage and shape them, because we all are rights holders when it comes to climate action. And it's really important that we are also advocating for ourselves and our needs in these spaces. So today we have a really exciting session for you where members of Youngo, the official children, and yes, there's our title slide, lovely. We're members of Youngo, the official children and youth constituency of the UNFCCC. We'll be giving a little bit of an overview of what NDCs are and the role that young people can play in them. And then myself, I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Haley, and I am the Executive Director of Care About Climate, and I'll be joined by my lovely teammates from Care About Climate as well to share a bit of information about a campaign that we are working on called the Universal NDC Youth Clause, but more importantly, how different countries are prioritizing or could improve their prioritization of young people and intergenerational collaboration in NDCs. At the end of our event, we'll have a quick simulation. We'll be joined by some amazing real-life negotiators to help practice what it will be like talking to negotiators when you're talking about NDCs or other areas of interest for you. So this is not just a sit and listen. This is also an exciting opportunity to learn, practice, role play, etc., to get tips and advice on how we can improve our advocacy as young people. So that's what we have for all of you today. And with that, I'm excited to invite our representatives from Youngo to start us off. Yay! Yeah, give it up. Yay! And also thank you to Youth for Capacity for having us. Yay! Okay. This is so great. It's actually going to be a representative who's joining us online. Porag, I'm excited to have you here. I can't see you yet, but this is so amazing, a hybrid event. Yay!
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Am I visible? So sorry, my camera is terrible.
No, you're not visible, but we can see the slides, and I think that is okay for now if you need to turn it off for service.
Great, thank you. So hello everyone, my name is Parag. I'm from Youngo. I'm the contact point of Youngo's NDCs working group, and I'm also one of the leads for the regional consultations on meaningful youth engagement in NDC 3.0. So I'll get started quickly as we have started a bit late, and I'll make sure to not take too much time. And can we go to the next slide? Yeah, thank you. So before we dive into the findings of what we got from the regional consultations, I'd also like to take a few moments to talk about why NDC 3.0 really matters, and what scopes do we still have to advocate, and what are the existing scenario of NDC 3.0. So why NDC 3.0 matters? I'm quite sure all of you know, and there are some text on the slide, but I'll talk from a very personal point of view on why NDC 3.0 matters to me and to young people like me who are coming from the global south and who are coming from the most vulnerable and most impacted communities. So we only have 4 years and 6 months left to achieve Paris Agreement and its common climate goal of staying within 1.5. And through NDC 3.0, parties are expected to meet this goal and to actually achieve our commitment towards Paris Agreement. And this time, countries are expected to enhance their ambition across mitigation, adaptation, and means of implementation. And that too, not only update their prior commitment, because this probably is the very last round of NDCs we have before the Paris Agreement, we reach the deadline for Paris Agreement. And at the same time, we have seen what the climate change has been causing over the past couple of years. We have seen that we have already reached 1.5 degree. We have touched the tip last year and also some parts of this year as well. So this year, NDC 3.0 is really important to build up on that almost loss and almost defeat that we have faced, and to scale up our ambition and to enhance our ambition. And another major reason why we need NDC 3.0 is because the previous two rounds, they don't align with our targets, and they don't follow the trajectory. And by the ambition we have in the previous two NDCs, we are not going to be able to keep our target and achieve our goal. So NDC 3.0 is really important to bring ourselves back on the track, to bring ourselves on the trajectory to achieve the global common climate goal of 1.5. And at the same time, NDC 3.0 is not just a policy paper, or it's not just a national commitment. This literally impacts people's lives, livelihoods, and communities. So this round of NDCs can ensure that people coming from the last miles are safe and people from the last mile are protected. At the same time, like I've been using the word last mile, at the same time, this probably is our last mile moment to correct our course, to get back on track, not only in terms of commitments or ambitions, but also in terms of technical work, also in terms of political goodwill, and also in terms of financial stability and financial support. So these are the reasons NDC 3.0 matters a lot to people like me coming from the global south and coming from the more vulnerable communities, and to people all over the world. Can you go to the next slide? So far, uh, as of now, as we speak, only 22 countries have submitted their NDCs, and most of the countries are still drafting or finalizing their NDCs. And it cannot be said that the countries who have submitted their NDCs have submitted very good NDCs. I mean, we can still see gaps in their ambition or transparency or their sectoral coverage. So there are still visible gaps within these 22, and the others, they have missed the deadline. A new deadline has been set, that is September 2025, and we expect the parties to submit their NDC 3.0 by September 2025. And as I was talking, not all these 22 NDCs are very bad. Some of them also show efforts. Some of them also show promise and ambition, such as the NDC from Nepal and some couple other NDCs from Europe. So that's a good sign, and we really hope the other NDCs that are yet to be submitted also follow those trajectories and also show promise and ambition in their 3.0. Still, like NDC 2.0, we still have massive gaps in youth inclusion or localized vulnerabilities, or the entire just transition mechanism being incorporated in NDC 3.0. And these are still the gaps we face in the submitted ones, and we are afraid that the non-submitted ones might also not reflect these demands and might not also properly bring on board the voices of the communities of the last mile people and the young people across the globe. But at the same time, this delay comes with a benefit for us as well. This delay has given us the time to, advocate more stronger in a more stronger manner, to push for our demands in a more stronger manner. Can we go to the next slide? So yeah, this is just similar to the previous slide on where the countries stand and what are their current conditions. So many countries have already started public consultations, and also many countries have already reached their final stage, their political stage of submission, and many countries are just starting. So yeah, not a lot of progress, but we hope the parties will be able to do it in a timely manner by September. Can we go to the next slide? So yeah, this is where we can still influence. Like I mentioned, the delay came with an opportunity for us, where we still have the time to engage with our ministries, our focal points, and our local governments to push for the national demands that we want, and at the same time to use platforms like HBs and other global platforms to push for our demands on a more global manner. And these influence can come in through a lot of ways. For example, the regional consultation report that's going to come out within a month, and that's going to be handed over to the UNFCCC parties and COP parties, so that they can also see our demands and integrate these into the indices they are yet to submit. So yeah, I'll say a lot of spaces, not a lot, but quite a few spaces to still influence, and let's hope for the best. Can we go to the next slide? So sorry, I'm going quite quickly through these slides, but this is where the main part comes in. The regional consultation on meaningful youth engagement in indices. This regional consultation was organized by Yango's Indices Working Group in partnership with International Indigenous Youth Forum on Climate Change. with support from UNDP, and the consultation was hosted by Youth for Climate. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah, so what is the regional consultation? So the regional consultations were virtual and open for all youth across the globe consultations that focused on identifying specific regional issues and barriers of youth engagement within these regions and on a national context. And the regional consultations also focused on creating regional policy recommendations, more like frameworks that will be handed over to the countries, and the countries can then shape this framework according to their country-specific needs and country-specific requirements. So yeah, overall, the regional consultations were open consultations for young people across the world to share their thoughts on NDCs and their thoughts on meaningful youth engagement and how we can ensure meaningful youth engagement on a better manner. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah, so these were the objectives like I've been talking about. The main objective of these consultations are to strengthen children and youth engagement in the NDC processes, both on a national, on a regional, and on a global level. And at the same time, we wanted to ensure informed policy change with evidence and documentations within our hand, and evidences and documentations that actually reflect the lived realities of children and youth across the globe. At the same time, the regional consultations also focuses on bridging the gap between state actors and non-state actors, especially children and youth, through the regional consultations recommendations report that is yet to come out, and to bring to ensure that all the stakeholders are on the same platform and pushing for the common climate demands. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah, so this is the demographic data. The consultation was run on Youth for Climate platform, where the consultation was open for a month, and we have over 700 children and youth coming from 92 countries to share their thoughts in the consultation. So as you can see, the demographic data, we had a massive number of engagement from Africa, Asia Pacific, Europe, Arab states, and Latin America and North America. And the average age of the participants of the consultations was 21, which is, I'd say, peak age of young people. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, so now I'll mainly talk about the quantitative data that we received from the consultations after analyzing all the inputs and all the thoughts of young people that we received through the consultation. So one of the key things that we tried to identify through this consultation was what are the key barriers of meaningful youth engagement in the NDC processes. And the biggest barrier that our participants shared was the financial and logistical barriers that hampered young people to be meaningfully engaged in their country's NDC processes. Other than that, limited accessibility and lack of information and awareness are also two major barriers that young people face on a regular basis when they want to engage in their country's NDC processes. And other than that, there are a few other barriers such as lack of capacity building and training, limited recognition of young people as stakeholders, then limited representation of marginalized youth, lack of follow-up and implementation. And oftentimes we have seen that young people are engaged in the country's processes in a one-time manner and on a needs-based manner from the government, and where the government only brings in young people for 1 or 2 times, only when the government needs young people in the room. So these are some of the key barriers that we identified. And in the next slide, can we get the next slide? In the next slide, we also tried to identify what are the key strategies to navigate within these barriers and to ensure that young people are engaged in a meaningful manner. And the first and the most popular option that young people in the consultations chose were the strategy that I didn't say capacity building and training programs for young people. Oftentimes from our consultations, we have heard from young people that oftentimes NDCs being quite technical topic, young people do not have the adequate capacity and training to meaningfully engage in these processes. Yes, oftentimes young people are invited, but they are unable to contribute on a meaningful manner because of the lack of capacity building and training programs. Secondly, another key strategy is to provide youth-led climate action support, supporting youth-led activities that can be fed into the NDC processes and that can be fed into the NDC achievement processes. And then we also have another strategy that is youth representation in party delegations. We are seeing a growing number of young people in party delegations, but the number is still very small and very inadequate. We need more young people in party delegations to ensure effective youth engagement in the country's overall policy processes, and not only NDCs. Then another major strategy is to provide financial and logistical support to youth engagement, not only bringing in young people in the country's processes, but also providing financial and logistical support to young people to do their own work. So these are some of the key strategies that we identified from the consultation. And can we go to the next slide? Yeah, and through the consultation, some of the key policy recommendations that we identified was dedicated finance for youth engagement in order to ensure meaningful youth engagement in NDC processes. By this, what we mean is having a government-based dedicated finance mechanism for young people to ensure that they are being able to engage in a meaningful manner in the country's NDC processes. Then another policy recommendation is to provide capacity building support and education programs for young people so that they are well informed about the processes, they know what they're getting into, and they know what they're talking about. Then another is supporting youth innovation and entrepreneurship in the country's adaptation and mitigation sectors. We are seeing a growing number of youth entrepreneurs, youth green entrepreneurs across the globe, and government support to scale up these projects and scale up these innovation can play a key role in achieving a country's adaptation and mitigation targets. Other than that, we have institutionalization of youth representation. We have integration of youth into national and local climate policies and some other policy recommendations. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah, now, what support do young people need from the government to ensure that young people are meaningfully engaged in their country's NDC process? So the first and foremost support that young people need is capacity building and training coming from the government's end. Then we also need networking and collaboration platforms. Oftentimes, what happens in countries like mine or in the global south countries is that there is no platform for networking and collaboration with other like-minded entities, and there is no platform to get all the data in a consolidated manner, and that's open. So these are the key support that young people need from their government. And other than that, we also need access to information and resources, like I mentioned, a platform that has all the necessary information in a consolidated manner and that is easily accessible by young people. Then we also need support for youth-led monitoring and accountability mechanism within a country's NDC processes. And other than that, we need support in terms of digital and technological tools, technical and legal support, and recognition and valued contributions. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah, summarizing all these points and all these findings, and also taking a note of the regional trends. These are the primary recommendations identified from the consultation. And one of the biggest recommendation we have for the countries, the regions, and on the global entities is that we need established formalized youth bodies that are directly linked to NDC governments at a national and on a local level within a country. Then we also need mandated youth engagement processes in a country's climate policy consultations, and at the same time in a country's party delegations within the global spaces. We need dedicated funding for youth-led climate action, training, and regional collaboration. And we need simplified access to the NDC processes via youth-friendly translated documents and toolkits, like I mentioned previously, platforms that have all the data and all the necessary information, and that is easily accessible, publicly accessible. We need to strengthen the monitoring role of young people through publicly supported and independent accountability mechanisms that can be replicated in not only on a national level, but also in local levels within a government structure. We need to support indigenous youth and youth coming from the most exposed communities and young people with disabilities. And this support needs to be targeted support. This cannot be a generalized support where indigenous youth from most exposed communities, and young people with disabilities will get a share, but we need targeted support for indigenous youth from most exposed communities, and young people with disabilities. So yeah, these are the key recommendations of our consultation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have regarding the findings and regarding the way forward for the consultation. Yeah, that's with that I end my slide, but yeah, happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so now that we have heard from the consultations from Youngo and their findings through the regional networks, we're now going to kind of shift into our next presentation. So I'm going to invite Dolores to come up and join me. Yes, give it up. Oh.
Great, thank you. Thank you everyone for having us here. So we are talking about how climate change represents an intergenerational problem, so it requires intergenerational leadership. So giving the floor to Haley now.
All right, the slides might be a little bit whack, but that's all right. Hopefully we can still see the rest of them. Let's see how it goes. Part 1, the NDC Equity Tracker. So, oh yeah, all right, it's fine. We can still read most of it. So to set up the problem about why we created this tool, it's important for us to set the scene on how young people are important to climate decision-making related processes. 94% of young people don't feel supported in multilateral forums, with 81% describing their experience as tokenistic. That means even if young people are here, or in these spaces, they're not always feeling supported to raise their voices. And that's in part why we're doing this session and why Youth for Capacity exists, to try and help close those gaps. 82% of young people don't actually know what their government is doing to tackle climate change. That's wild. 8 in 10 people don't know what their government is doing on climate change. And that shows a really big gap, but also a really important role that we can close. And 45% of young people already or plan to change jobs due to concerns about how their employer is negatively impacting the climate. So these 3 stats build the case for why it's important that we're not only engaging as agents of change as young people in this space, but we're also encouraging our friends, our peers, our siblings, our families to also get involved in the process, because it's going to take all of us in order to get climate action done right and to get it done justly. Moving on. So where have we seen youth inclusion pop up in the UNFCCC? We've seen it in a number of different places, but here I highlight 3 examples. First, we see it most prominently pop up in COP26 Glasgow's Climate Pact, which urges parties and stakeholders to ensure meaningful youth participation within these decision-making spaces. This is really important because these texts give us something as young people to go to our governments, to go to our policymakers and remind them that they committed to actually working and engaging with us, which means that their positions should also reflect that. We also see it in the COP27 Action for Climate Empowerment, or ACE for short, action plan, and in the establishment of a new role, the Presidency Youth Climate Champion, which we've now had 2 formally of and previously an additional 1 appointed in COP27. So how does this lead to the NDC Equity Tracker? We all know that when NDCs leave people out, they're leaving solutions off of the table. This tracker is a public accountability tool that is meant to center intergenerational partnership and gender mainstreaming in climate policy. It empowers young people from their countries to learn about, to engage with, and to provide recommendations for their country's NDC when it comes to climate ambition, gender, and youth inclusion. Each NDC is given a score, as you can see here, from purple to green, otherwise from critically deficient to exemplary, to indicate how they're doing. So as you can see, they're not really doing that great on this map. Not yet anyways. This is a comparison of all of previous NDCs submitted in the last round. So right now, when this critical window of opportunity, where parties are working on improving and raising the ambition of their current NDCs in this process. So hopefully we'll see a lot more green and a lot more yellow on this map. And if you're wondering any good examples, you can see here Zimbabwe is highlighted in green. The Dominican Republic is also exemplary as well. It's just much smaller to see on this map. So gonna shout them out as well in this process. And if you're wondering, why haven't all countries been analyzed? It's because we actually empower young people from those communities themselves to engage and to be these ambassadors for the project, and we actually pay them to do so. And so any country that hasn't been done is because of the funding constraints that affect not just organizations like ours, but even the UNFCCC. So it goes everywhere, right? So if you're wondering, that is the answer to that question. And what did we find? In the 84 countries that were analyzed, we found that more than 60% of NDCs don't include young people meaningfully. All right. Anyways, in the development processes, that means not just in consultations, but in actually developing, contributing to the NDC. We also found that 49% don't mention women or gender meaningfully in the development and execution of the processes. And you might be wondering, what are these checklists for? How are we getting to these scores? The checklist is created through existing checklists like the UNICEF's child-sensitive NDC checklist, like UNDP's Youth and NDC checklist, UN Women's checklist, but also informed by what young people have over the years of doing this project found to be additionally important. And what's really important about that is it's giving us a qualitative element to this, rooted in people's lived realities and communities, not just kind of a globally agreed upon set of indicators that young people or women, gender diverse people didn't always have the chance to influence directly. So that's why these numbers might be a little bit different than other statistics. Either way, 100% of youth ambassadors believe that their NDCs can be improved. And this is important because that means from whatever country that you're in, there's a growing body of young people that say, I want to see my government do more on climate change. Yes, there are finance, capacity building, technology constraints, but that doesn't mean they can do nothing, is the message that we've heard from our ambassadors around the world. So I mentioned this a little bit, so I'll go quickly through this slide. What makes the tracker unique? It has non-traditional data, unlike scientific, academic, or AI even based tools used a lot by UN agencies, academic communities. This project harnesses grassroots monitoring and citizen science to bring qualitative insights to the assessment. So it's not just quantitative, is it there or is it not? It's qualitative, reviewing it, comparing it to other documents, and actually having the chance to provide recommendations. It also is culturally relevant. By having young people from their countries getting the chance to actually review and talk and learn about their NDC, they get to help shape what can come next. And of course, it's advocacy-based. It centers advocates and youth-generated recommendations for the improvement of NDCs. All right, so its impact, yay! This led to the creation of the Universal NDC Youth Clause at COP29, which I'll share more about in a moment, that was actually already adopted by the UK. So if anyone's in here from the UK, you now have not only UNFCCC agreements, but also their new NDC that you can take to them and say, hey, what are you doing on climate change? And why aren't you acting quickly enough? I have some ideas for you, and then you have an opportunity to raise them. It was also featured in the 2023 and 2024 annual reports on action for climate empowerment, and my personal favorite outcome, it informed the public consultations of the Dominican Republic's current NDC draft, which is really exciting to see that it's not just sitting on a shelf, it's being used by countries to really inform and enhance their NDCs. And that can be your NDC too, right? So, how is this going from tool to campaign? I mentioned the NDC Youth Clause. This clause is a call to action for intergenerational collaboration, which has now been adopted by many countries in progress now, including the UK. And it has these three elements of appreciation, collaboration, and education. And it's building on that existing language that parties have already adopted. So that language I showed you a few slides ago on UNFCCC, intergenerational justice, it builds exactly on that. So it's not asking for parties to do anything new. It's asking them to recommit and to really center the commitments they've already made. And you might be wondering, what happens after this round of NDCs? If we go and we encourage our governments to implement intergenerational justice and to have 1.5 aligned NDCs, what is next? They have to implement them, one. And two, they get reviewed again by the global community in something called the Global Stocktake, which you might be seeing a lot of here, the GST for short. There's been 3 different agenda items on that alone and ongoing here at the SBs. And here it is, this little timeline. And every few years after NDCs are submitted, the global community is set to review them and provide recommendations for the enhancement of the next NDCs. So without youth awareness, leadership, and access to clear data on NDCs, there's a risk that decision makers will continue to overlook the long-term consequences of weak climate policies, because we all know that when young people are included in these decision-making processes, the outcomes are a lot more ambitious. And that's not just something we know. The science and the data has also told us that, specifically from UNICEF's research. So it's really important that we're raising awareness and acting on them together. So you might be thinking, what does intergenerational justice look like in an NDC, or what does it look like in practice? It looks like these types of things: youth advisory boards, youth delegates as part of official delegations. It looks like mentorship from some of the older generation delegates and some of the newer generation delegates working together to close that gap, because mentorship goes both ways, right? We all have a lot to learn from those who have been in this process for a long time, but they also have a lot to learn from us too. So it's how do we work together? It also looks like youth network mapping. I bet everyone here knows a youth-led organization, or maybe even is leading one in their communities. It looks like mapping those out and identifying how we can work together. It looks like youth consultations, and it also looks like intergenerational policies. So even when we have discussions, there's actually policies and indicators to help get everything back on track, to help assess gaps, to help create opportunities for new recommendations. There's a lot. These are just examples. I'm sure you can all think of many additional ones, but these are some of the ones that are highlighted most commonly in the NDC Equity Tracker. Moving on, did you know you can actually find your UNFCCC focal points on the internet? It is public information. So if you have an idea or an ask for your government delegation, such as, will you adopt the NDC Youth Clause? I don't know, just an idea. You can actually Google UNFCCC focal points and find yours online. So I encourage you, if you haven't checked that out, to do so. If you'd like to learn more about the NDC Youth Clause or talk about it with your government, we've provided some talking points for you to be able to better and more effectively do that. We also have a group chat, so if you'd like to share updates or provide recommendations or say, hey, like, I just ran into so-and-so from, what happened to me last week? Someone came up to me and said, I just ran into so-and-so from Kenya. Like, they want to know about the Youth Clause, and they put it in the group chat, and other people from Kenya were like, oh, can I join? Can I come? Of course, right? So it's a really good opportunity to engage, to share updates, and to ask questions. If you go and meet with Kenya and Kenya says, I have concerns about the NDC Youth Clause, and you don't know how to address them, that's okay. Tell them, you'll get back to them, and send it to the chat, and we'll help you. So I saw some phones out. I think I'm going to go on to the next one, which is a few case studies of examples from the Dominican Republic, the United Kingdom, and Brazil. And I'll pass it over to my teammate, Dolores, to give us some of those.
Thank you, Haley. Amazing presentation. So we are talking about a few cases that we have chosen for you. These cases are different, as you can see, different type of countries, so you can have an overview of how this looks in practice, our tool. So the first case will be the Dominican Republic. This country is, despite the fact that this analysis is from the previous one, it is still relevant because it is an example of how a global south country, and in fact, the Dominican Republic is the 8th most climate vulnerable country according to the Global Climate Risk Index. And despite being one of the world's smallest emitters, as you can see here globally, then they show that there is possible to do commitments, that commitments are actually an option, that ambition is always an option. So this is how the scorecard of the NDC Equity Tracker looks like. And as you can see, of course, there's room for improvement, but at the same time, there are a lot of things to learn from them. So in terms of emissions, for instance, they have increased its reduction goal from 25% to 27% by 2030, with an additional 25% of increase conditional on international support. And they always follow their commitments with action. So they already created a national campaign with more than 50 actions related to mitigation. And the same thing happens when it comes to gender. because they are one of the first countries to incorporate gender responsiveness and to recognize women's role as agents of change. And again, this is backed with action when they created the Gender and Climate Action Plan for the Dominican Republic. At the same time, when it comes to youth inclusion, they devote an entire section, as it says, to youth, and the NDC includes 5 specific youth goals. It may don't sound like a lot, but believe me, we have done a lot of analysis and this is not common. So, and they also back this with action with the 2020-2030 National Youth Plan. And these specific youth goals include participation in decision-making, youth network on climate change, and climate education. So they are a really good example of what things can be done if you get creative. And as Hailey said, they are already incorporating the youth clause in the current NDC they are developing. So then we have the case of the United Kingdom. As you can see, it should be better, but and we don't currently have the scorecard for the third NDC because it is currently being done. But thanks to the analysis made by our youth ambassadors in the UK, we can draw some conclusions. So the UK has progressively increased its ambition from 57% on their first NDC, jointly with the European Commission, to 81% so far, and everything not relying on carbon credits. So, however, some improvements can be made, especially regarding climate finance, because the UK's Climate Committee suggested them to actually have a greater space for climate finance support in their NDCs, and this didn't happen, nor in the second round, nor in the third round of their NDCs. Regarding gender and youth, well, it happens what we usually have, a vague mention of gender and youth in their NDCs. But the good thing is that in practice, the Civil Society and Youth Advisory Council for COP26 was created, but of course it made sense in that moment given the circumstances. But the good thing is to see if that actions are followed later on, if there is systematically support to youth or not. And in that sense, as Hailey said, we have great news, and the UK have actually adopted the Universal Youth and NDC Youth Climate Goals, sorry. So in that sense, it's a good example to take into consideration of just leaving the blah, blah, blah behind and take some real actions for youth empowerment. And finally, we have Brazil. Of course, one great reason to include Brazil is because we're having them as our host this year. So it's good to see what is the situation. And they should lead by example, you know, so it's good to have this information on our hands to advocate for better inclusion of youth in these processes. So they have also released their third NDC. So they are amongst these small group of countries that have already done that. And that is something that we should also be grateful for, because we are living in a moment where international cooperation is not actually being legitimized so far. So it's good to have always people that is intended to keep this consensus alive. So when it comes to the second NDC, there's only one reference to gender responsiveness, and there is a lack of inclusion of anything related to intersectionality. And there is no mention neither for youth or people at all, youth people at all. So the needs of youth are missing there too. The problem is that in the third NDC, things didn't have changed much. And the document does not even explicitly identify youth, future generations, or young people as being particularly vulnerable to climate change. And regarding emissions, we have a 59% emission reduction plus 80% conditional to carbon markets, which represent a 16% increase from its previous NDC. And as it says, pretty big here. Why is it important? Because despite the fact that Brazil is not an historical large emitter, now is positioned as the sixth larger global emitter. So it is important that when countries begin to develop and industrialize, they actually have actions that are related to these ambitions and commitments they have made. So yeah, that's mostly it regarding the case studies. And of course, there are a lot more, and you can try to see if you can find the analysis of your country within the website. So we invite you all to take a look. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, give it up. We're now going to move on to another presentation from Youngo. There's a little back and forth situation happening here. Oh. Okay. We're just going to give it a minute for the online audience to be able to catch us as well. But for now, I can introduce Youngo to give an overview of the next part while they're changing the slides.
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah? All right. I'm just gonna use the chance to drink some water before my intervention. Hopefully the online people will also be able to see everything shortly. Yeah. All right. Hi, everyone. Happy to see many familiar faces. I'm going to give you a very, very quick introduction about Youngo because I think most of you are familiar. Just a quick show of hands. How many of you are Youngo members? Okay. A good number. As most of you know, Youngo is the official children youth constituency, is one of the official engagement mechanisms for children and youth in the UNFCCC processes. And it's a strong tool for influence, for influencing these processes and for participation. In the current context, we see on one hand progress, we see the institutionalization of youth participation, but on the other hand, we see pushback, especially when it comes to intergenerational equity and really advancing climate justice through fast and equitable and efficient climate action. So that's why it's really important for us to continue our work, to amplify our work. in order to institutionalize intergenerational equity in governance processes and to establish this as a principle, as an operational principle, not just a mention in the preamble, and to advance rights-based climate action, to hold parties accountable, and to ensure meaningful child and youth participation on all levels. And I think beyond meaningful, it's really important for it to be funded as well, because a lot of the really important voices that could be here are absent because of a lack of funding, because of a lack of resources. Now, the role of children and youth in climate governance is really important because they're key stakeholders. We are key stakeholders. We are half of the world's population. And even though we are such a big part of the demographic, youth participation in decision-making remains very limited. There's also a moral imperative. So we are the ones who are going to bear the brunt of the consequences of the climate crisis. And it actually gets down to very, very material things. The fact that we are actually going to pay financially for the delays in climate action. I want to take us through a quick advocacy training on how to craft policy asks for policymakers, how to identify the leverage points, the people that you can get in touch in order to make a difference, and how to approach different forms of influence. And I couldn't talk about this without talking about our policy tools. You don't have to start from scratch. There's already a wealth of resources out there. And the Universal Youth, NDC Youth Clause that you heard Haley talk about is one of the main ones, especially when it comes to participation in the NDC processes. The first one that you see on the screen is the Global Youth Statement. Again, a show of hands, who has participated in an LCOI, provided inputs, participated in a hackathon. I see again a few hands. Yeah, some hands came up again and again. This is probably the most comprehensive consultation ran specifically on children and youth and climate change. It's a very important policy document because it's a comprehensive one. You can consult shortly the Global Youth Statement. It's developed every year, and it has thematic section as well as a negotiations aligned version, which gives you text that you can advocate for. It could be literally copied and pasted into text because it's drafted in UN language. It's aligned with the negotiation agenda. So it's something that can be very useful during days like this, you know, a conference, in a conference setting where you really need a resource to draft your message quickly. Now, there's obviously an NDC and climate action plans section, and I encourage you to consult it because it's something that stays relevant. However, the Global Youth Statement is drafted every single year, so it has a focus on that year's COP specifically. Whereas the other two documents that you see, the Universal NDC Youth Clause and the Strategic Policy Position, have a permanent nature. About the clause, you have already heard. It's an amazing initiative. It's an amazing campaign, and the fact that it's already been adopted, I think, is something that can give us hope. You know, can give us energy to continue our advocacy work. When it comes to the strategic policy position, this is a fresh out of the oven document. We have just launched it a week ago in the youth orientation session, and it's a short one. It's easy to get through. It's less than 10 pages, and of course it has demands on NDCs and youth participation. If you want to test what I've said and check the NDC sections of these documents, you can take out your phones and scan the QR codes. The GYS, again, is the GYS published last year. It maintains its relevance. The demands are still a great resource. The Universal NDC Youth Clause, if you haven't signed for support yet, please do so. Maybe Haley is going to come back to that as well. And the strategic policy position, which Yango has just launched. Now, these are super important tools because that means that half of your work is already done. When you need to develop a message around something, you can easily go to these documents, consult them, see what's relevant for you, see what you feel represented by, tweak them, adapt them to your own position, and you can have the confidence that it's not just your voice in the process, it's actually the voices of, for the Global Youth Statement, up to 780,000 children and youth from around the world with a strategic policy position, the constituency behind it. So it's a lot of weight behind this positioning. When it comes to the demands, on policy and governance, I've picked a couple of them. There's 10 demands on policy and governance, but we have included in the strategic policy position one specifically on amplifying national children and youth inclusion efforts. And that means inclusion in decision-making processes, in the development of NDCs, and in their implementation, and of course, adopting the Universal NDC Youth Clause. It's also about participation in these conferences because these are great opportunities for us to get in touch with our delegations. I think, how many of you have met with a delegate in your home country? Okay, how many of you have met with a delegate in your home country here? I see more hands for the second ask, and that's often the case. Oftentimes, delegations, parties, tend to be a lot more open to a bilateral here than back home. So really do use this context to amplify your work and to get that way in, because then you're more likely to meet at home as well if you've met here once you've made contact. Now, moving on to the thematic national determined contribution section, of course, we're asking for the very common sense things to do, to submit 1.5 degrees aligned and economy-wide NDCs, to adapt modalities to follow up on the first global stocktake, which we see is still challenging, to promote a second global stocktake process that includes all civil society stakeholders, and to ensure that NDCs are gender transformative. I want to give you some tips on how to develop positions, because of course these documents are ready to use, ready to go, but it's important to also use the national context, whether it's through the National Youth Conference, through the LCOIs, or of your own initiative, through your organization. You can develop documents that have power and advocate for them. You can build your own positions. And in that process, I encourage you to scope out the climate-related frameworks. See what legislation already exists. A lot of the times, there already is a framework. It's just not properly implemented. And it's important for you to be aware of that. Also, think about the commitments that states have made at the international level, because many times there's a delay between the European, for example, level or international level and the translation of that international legislation. And there's a space where you can come in to push for that translation to happen sooner rather than later. Secondly, it's important to identify the right actors. If you are talking to someone who can't really influence in any way the development process, for example, for the NDCs, and you're very passionate about it, maybe they're going to be kind enough to put you in touch with someone who is in a decision-making position, but it's likely not going to be the best investment of your time. So do your research. As Haley is saying, check who the national focal points are first and foremost, because that's a very good starting point. Then you can go to ministries. You can also get in touch with the presidential administration, even with MPs. You need to also find a combination between the right person at the right place, but also the right person at the right place with the right mindset. Because someone who's open towards youth participation, someone who's open to the cause, can be an ally and can put their resources into your use and their contacts, and that can really smooth things over. It's also important to identify the right partners. We're not alone in this. And coalization is one of the great tools that we can use to do our work better. Many times we're working in silos. We are working towards the same objectives, but not pooling our resources. And especially in this context of funding cuts, of unfriendly political environments, it's really important to stick together and to organize well. Lastly, it sounds a bit boring, but it's actually a really important part to do a bit of a literature review, to see what's already out there, to see if you're part of the National Youth Climate Council, check what the National Youth Council has published on climate change, what the National Students Association has published. And this is relevant for coalization as well, because if we stick together, we're able to amplify each other's efforts. So yeah, try to build a shared narrative. On the drafting part, specifically, when you start to write your position, and your position can be a 2-pager, of your organization, or it can be a national consultation process. You decide how far you want to take it. The important thing is to really put what you have to say into a well-developed form that can be shared with authorities, because the talk isn't enough. And in that sense, the best practices that I'd like to share with you is, first of all, to be concise and clear. It's really important when you're talking to busy people not to waste their time. Sometimes they don't have, they're dealing with a lot of issues in the same day, and they don't have too much time to go through everything. So they want to hear what you have to say quickly. Otherwise, you're losing their attention. Designate a specific party in your text that you expect to fulfill that demand. If you just shoot it in, at the wall, it's not going to stick. You have to name who the specific institution, whether it's the Ministry of Environment or the Ministry of Education or the Presidency, or different types of stakeholders. Go through this process of thinking who could actually turn my demand into reality. Because if we don't do that, they're not going to do it on their own, and it makes our advocacy less focused. Avoid redundancy. Don't say the same thing in each paragraph. Try to be crisp. This is something that everyone responds to. A well-drafted text is a convincing text. Use evidence to your advantage. The youth climate movement is a movement that has been greatly fueled by science and by the discrepancy between what we know is true through science and what policies are adopted. And you can use this gap to amplify your message and to justify why the demands that you're advancing are necessary. And lastly, write statements that are easy to lobby for. Don't make your work more difficult. Write something that you can easily advocate with. Write something that's in a language that can be easily adopted by national authorities and by negotiators. A good example is the Global Youth Statement in its negotiations allied version, which uses UNFCCC language, very tailored to negotiations. Now, some influence tools that you can use are consultations. A lot of the times, if you talk to someone from the ministry and ask them, oh, but how was this decided? Youth was not included. They're going to tell you that they had open consultations on this date and no youth organizations attended. And that's where it's going to end. You know? Were youth organizations informed about this consultation? Maybe not. Where can you get the information about when and where the consultation takes place? In a if it's published on a website, in a hard-to-reach corner of the not very functional website of the national authority. So in order to avoid these kind of answers, we need to do our research and to track the policy processes. It takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of focus, but after a bit of practice, it gets easier. And that's where we actually can come in. We're entitled to participate in these consultations, but it's also important to be prepared for them. And going through this process of developing a position is a very good way to ensure that once you're in the room, you have something to say and you're going to be listened to. Shadow reports, open letters, public pressure. This is something that you're familiar with. And I don't want to take too much of your time because we have an exercise. And I want you to put everything we've discussed in practice really quickly. I don't want you to overthink it. I just want you to open a docs document right now, if you can, on your laptops, on your phones. It doesn't need to be a big deal. It's an easy thing. It's just practice. How many of you have a docs document in front of you? Not too many. I can give you another 30 seconds. It can be on your phone as well. It's not a problem. Or whatever app you. Oh, sorry. I have been. I was unaware of the fact that I was promoting a certain product. You can use Pages or Notes or any Notion. It's fine. It's fine. That's just the one that I used. And I encourage you to have that blank page in front of you so that you feel that tension. When we have a blank page in front of us, we feel a natural urge to fill it with something, to write our thoughts on it. And I want us to go through this process, to scan that QR code and to see who our national focal points are. In case you're not already best buddies and you're talking on WhatsApp, you might want to go through this process. So please take out your phones, scan the QR code, and we can go through the process that also Haley mentioned. Because there you're going to find the list with the national focal points, check for your country, and see what the email address is that you can write to. I'm going to give you a minute. All right. I see no more phones, so I will assume that people found their national focal point. How many of you have the address? Okay, nice. Good. Maybe some of you are still looking for it, and I hope you find it, because you're going to use it right now. You're going to draft a short email on that blank page with 3 demands. Those 3 demands can be, you can literally copy and paste them from the Universal NDC Youth Clause, from the Strategic Policy Position, or from the Global Youth Statement. It can be as easy as that. Or you can add something that's tailored to your national context, something that maybe you've been thinking about saying for a long time, but didn't have a context to do that in. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes to check the demands. 2 minutes. It doesn't need to be super serious. It's just a drafting exercise. I'm going to take you back to the documents. Maybe that's useful for you to have the links right in front of you. Now, I invite you to draft a short email, and you can choose at least 2 of these suggestions. You can present the demands, you can share the documents, you can ask for information on how the party is already doing something on that, or whether they're already doing something, incorporating those demands in some way. And if you're feeling bold and if you're ready to jump into action, ask for a meeting. Maybe for after the SBs, or if your delegation is on ground and you're interested in a bilateral a meeting at the SBs, why not? So you can choose at least 2 out of these 4 and include them in your email. I'm going to give you 90 more seconds. You can put some bullet points in there just to know what you'd like to say if you had more time. And we can shortly wrap up the exercise. I hope that you feel like writing more and more. And I hope that this email, which is just a mock-up, just a quick little 10 minutes exercise, turns into an actual letter that you're going to send to your national focal points. Maybe you can work on this afternoon. Don't let too much time pass, because then you're never going to send it. And then you're going to be next time, I don't know, at COP or SBs, and you're going to remember this workshop and be like, I wish I had been in contact with my national focal point, because I have some things to share with them. So start building that relationship as soon as possible. You can start doing that this afternoon. And they're going to be interested in what you have to say. And approach this with respect for where you're coming from, for your position. You have a mandate by being here. And your mandate is to represent children and youth from your country and globally. So do that proudly. Don't undermine yourself. Believe in these demands and advocate for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mara. And excuse me. So now I'm really excited to welcome up more of my teammates, Julieta and Megan. Coming. Yay. Yes, give it up. Give it up for more teammates. And we're actually going to turn this from a sitting down and listening exercise into an interactive, fun practice live exercise. And so what they're going to do, well, they're going to pull up the slides, but before, what they're going to do is they're actually going to do a simulation of what it's like to talk to a negotiator. They're going to practice, they're going to show you. And we actually have two negotiators here that are going to give us their feedback. So if you, Maciel and Bastian, you want to come to the front or you want to stay there, back there, whatever you'd like to do. Yes, come to the front, And they're going to tell us their feedback. What would they have done? Do they feel convinced? Are they, yes, I want to listen to you? Or they're like, oh, heard this before, give me something new. They're going to give us feedback, meaning positive things, like we like this, and some ideas of ways that we can improve. And then after they show you and give a little bit of advice, oh yeah, please feel free. Then you all get to come up and practice. Exciting, and there are no wrong practices or answers. Don't be embarrassed. It's all fun and games, literally. So yeah, over to y'all.
Yes, great. Okay, I'm the negotiator.
So before you have a chance to practice, we wanted to give you some tips on how to approach negotiators. If this is your first time doing it, it can be very overwhelming and intimidating because they don't have time for anything besides their agenda, so they're going to try to brush you off. So some ideas that we want to share with you is try to catch them after an event or a negotiation because they have fresh ideas on their mind, and you can reach out about specific points that they have brought up. So you can follow up on conversations on something they mentioned that you thought was interesting or something that you want more context on. That can be a great way to start up a conversation, both at side events or sessions. Negotiators are busy, so maybe see if you can go with them to their next appointment. So of course don't follow them to the bathroom. But if you're going in the same direction, you can be like, oh, I'm also going to that room. Can I go with you and we can chat about this? And that way you can sort of follow them, but always respectfully. And also, like Mara said, reach out to the people that are coming from the same place as you, reach out to their emails or go to the country office. Sometimes it's a little hard because, again, they have very set and structured agendas, but if you have an opportunity to talk to them on your own language, on your own terms, it could be a great idea. Something happened. Some other things is have a set idea of what you want to say, have points that you want to talk about. Don't just start rambling because that's a waste of time for you and them. Have an elevator pitch. We always recommend having something you want to say between 2 or 3 minutes that's short, concise, and has all the information you need. Remember, the negotiators are people too, so they need to eat and go to a bathroom. Just if they're doing those things, let them. Be flexible with their schedule. And like Mara mentioned, not all of them are very youth-oriented or youth-friendly, so perhaps doing some research can also help you save some time and frustration, because you're going to meet people that just don't care to listen to you. So if you know who you want to talk to, that's even better. And this is a little tip that we found that works excellent. Take a picture with them and have the picture yourself, not with their phone, with your phone. And then you ask them for their telephone number or their email, and they have a reminder of your face, and you have their contact information. So that way you can strike up a conversation afterwards, because that's very important to have a plan after the meeting or the session. Don't let it end here. Don't let it end at the conference. Have a way to reach out to them once you are home. And that's it. I'll leave it to Dolores and Megan.
This is already on, yes. Okay, hi everyone. We're going to do now a bit of a simulation. So I think we're gonna simulate first, and then we'll have some other folks come up and try it as well. Yeah. Do you need the other mic? So in this simulation, I am a negotiator and Dolores as a youth representative.
Yeah, and the idea is not to do it good right now, so we can have feedback and yeah, do the things wrong now so we can do it better when we have to. So are we? Okay, action. Okay. Hello, I'm sorry.
Hello.
Can I borrow you for like a second now?
I just have to go to the bathroom.
Oh, okay. See ya.
And then we can do a good one.
Another one? Okay.
Yes, we'll do one. Yeah.
What did y'all think of that? Is that what helped? Or the advocate, what do you think?
Oh no, that is a terrible approach because first, she touched her, so that's don't ever touch anyone. Please, at least not in this space. Coming from me, I'm a Latina, right? So everyone I know, I greet them with a hug. Well, you know this. I greet them with a hug, but please don't touch anybody ever, unless you are like very well acquainted with them.
I do like the respectfulness that when she said, I need to go to the bathroom, you said, okay, then let's... You could have said, well, I would love to talk to you in a couple of minutes if you have some time.
I do have some feedback on the points that she made earlier when she was going through the points, but perhaps so that they don't cheat, I'll leave them for the last part.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just gonna stay in the
Hi, I'm sorry. Are you the negotiator for Canada?
Yeah, no need to apologize. Yes.
Okay,
yes,
okay. So I was wondering if I can walk you through the next negotiation room and we talk about some topics.
Yeah, sure. I'm on my way. Let's go.
Oh, great. So the thing is that we are wondering how are the negotiators actually thinking about how are they, well, let me start over. Yeah, okay. So regarding youth inclusion, how are they approaching to that now?
Great question. Yes.
Oh my God.
Okay, what do we think?
First on this one.
So I think you started excellent, very friendly, and can I have a minute of your time? And then you seemed a bit surprised that when she said yes, you forgot one of the tips. I don't remember. I think it was Mara who said, know what you want to say and don't start rambling. And this is where it went wrong. And then you sort of re-gripped yourself and had an excellently prepared question. So well done.
Oh, okay. So yeah, now the
This
idea
is where cultural differences interject because you said you started off great. You have to read the badge. Never approach someone that you are not too sure who they are. If someone approaches me and they be like, "Are you the negotiator from?" No. If you're approaching me, it's because you want something to say. So chances are you at least know where I'm from. You don't have to know my name, but at least you know where I'm from.
Exactly.
And if I'm a party or a bar observer. And then even though she did ask the question, her idea was not complete. So you were doubting, which means if you are in this space and you don't know what you're going to tell me, this is the wrong space for you. And also, the walk was long enough for you to form a complete idea. So you wasted about 20 seconds of a negotiator time. So time of the essence, people.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad that you saw already one of the points that I wanted to. It's like, I don't know how, but I thought easily how to do it wrong, and you catch it. So it's great. So yeah, I don't know do we have time for? Okay. Oh, maybe one good example.
From us, a good example. Okay.
I don't know if I can do a good example though. I was thinking of how to do it bad, but I don't know if I can do it well. But yeah.
We're here to give you feedback.
Yeah, now I'm getting the proper feedback. Yeah, great.
Is there anyone
Okay.
from the audience who would like to try
And that is maybe a better
our
idea.
simulation?
So
No.
Yeah, it's supposed to be interactive, so if only us are doing the exercise, not the point. Okay. Yeah, true. We're wasting negotiators' time. So, hello, Miss Megan DeVoe from
Yes.
Canada. Okay, thank you for your time. No, that was wrong. Okay, let's go again. I was wondering if I can walk you through the negotiation rooms so we can talk about some topics related to the youth and universal youth NDC clause. I don't know if you're familiar.
No, can you tell me what that is?
Yeah, so the idea is that parties can adopt this youth clause. So youth is more empowered to participate in the climate negotiation spaces and in decision-making processes for the NDCs. So I don't know if you want me to share with you maybe the QR code so you can take a further look later. Or if you have a time later on this day or these days to discuss further on this?
Sure, sounds interesting.
Okay, thank you so much. Share detail, share the connection thing.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for your time. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Okay.
It was good. The only thing about the pitch is that you didn't entirely address the point from the get-go, which is essential. So I'm gonna let Bastian give his feedback, and then I'm gonna give you guys the pointers that I wrote down for the general feedback. Haley, I'm gonna text you this, so in case they don't catch it, that way you guys can circulate it after that.
So I did think it was good, and also think it can be better. You seem to be aware of the fact that you're walking someone to a room, so you know you have little time. You had clearly in your mind what you wanted to say, what message you wanted to get across, but it didn't sound like an elevator pitch. Have that ready, and perhaps one of the things that I missed in most presentations actually is what access to youth as a constituency can mean for negotiators. Because basically you're unlocking a new communication channel, and it doesn't mean you will immediately agree on everything, but you can be a channel to us policymakers or negotiators to reach constituents that we don't yet have access to.
To be more engaged.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay, great. So I will give you guys some pointers. It's okay if you can't write them all down, but I will very briefly, because I know time is of the essence. So first off is you have to be observant of the person that you want to approach. If you want to approach this person, it has to be for something more than them being the focal point or the negotiator. So remember that when you are in a new UNCCC session, it's hunting season. So you have to observe. It's funny the way I talk, right? I'm a Latina, remember, so it's hunting season. So you need to know the person that you are going to approach. It's good that you read their body language, because perhaps even if you see them walking, maybe potentially that's not the best moment for them. So the fact that they are not engaging at the first moment might not be that they're not interested, it's just not the right time. So always try to read that body language first. It is good to maybe approach them like when they're leaving a meeting or a negotiation, but it's gonna depend on the outcome of that negotiation. So if you see, for example, that this person, like if there was a very contentious text and you know that this person was actively participating on that, maybe not the right time to try to engage with them, because they might have other things in mind. So the accompany walk is really good, but you have to make sure that you're willing to follow the pace of that person. Some people walk slow, some people walk fast. So remember that you have to follow their pace. If the person is not willing to engage directly at the first time you try, take some time to at least investigate some of their work, to see the people that know them and approach someone that you have seen that person talking to and tell them that you want to meet this person. Perhaps they'll be able to facilitate a meeting or offer some information on that. Or if the focal point works with any specific organization, maybe you want to address them from the standpoint of the work that you know they have already been doing. Then the 3 minutes might be too long. So what you want to do is that you want to do the elevated pitch in the first 30 seconds or so. So right from the get-go, once you introduce yourself with a firm handshake, depending on the cultural nuances, of course, because I know that some people can't shake hands. So in the first 30 seconds, you say your name, your country or the organization you represent, and what is it that you want. And then have something to offer in order to at least intrigue these people. So let's say you represent an organization, talk about your webpage, exchange LinkedIn accounts or IG page, whatever. That also works very good. And if you want, you could also try to, embellish the conversation, saying how you have been following this person and that you're interested in the way that they think or the wording that they use, whatever, something like that. But you have to create at least the minimum relatability for this person to feel comfortable enough talking to you. So that's my feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, that's one of my favorite pieces of feedback, which is you really have to be excited, but you also have to know know the right thing to say. And sometimes that means a little bit of embellishment, I've been following ACE for the last 3 years and I've been wanting to come up to talk to you about this. Even if you've never followed ACE before, you just go do it. They're not gonna know, and that's harmless, right? The other important comment I'll make is, if I'm talking to this negotiator and I only give them my card, do you think that they're gonna follow up with me? No, they're gonna go like this.
Yeah,
Exactly. I've actually found my business card on the ground before. So it was really funny because someone texted me a photo. And so, yes, you want to make sure that you're getting both information, but only if they're comfortable, right? Don't force them to give it to you. If they don't want to talk to you and they don't want to give it to you, go find their UNFCCC focal point and Google it on the website and use the email there, right? Or the ACE focal point emails if your country has one as well. So remember, it's about respect, but also, don't be afraid to really make sure you approach them with your positions and make sure it's in the first 30 seconds, right? It's not scary, it takes practice, and not everyone's gonna listen to you on the first try. But with that said, we do have a volunteer, so this is really exciting. Do you want to introduce your name for the group?
Okay, my name is Justin Gabu.
All right, and do you want to be? I'll be your negotiator since they have to leave. Is there a topic that you're really interested in? Adaptation, mitigation? Okay, pick one of those, and then I'm going to be coming up from a negotiation. Okay, this is the setting. I'm the Independent Republic of Haiti at this current time. All right. Negotiation ends. I'm coming up. Oh, yes, you need the mic. Good call. Yes, I'm the negotiator. Negotiation ends. I'm walking out of the room.
Hello.
Oh. Okay.
Hello, hi.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm Justin, and I would like to have some few seconds with you and about your intervention on adaptation.
Oh, thank you. Are you from Youngo, or who are you here with?
Yeah, I'm from Yango, and I would like to have some few seconds to get a discussion with you.
Okay, and what specifically on adaptation are you interested in?
Yeah, on adaptation in our forum as a Yango, we have some clause discussion and ideas that I would like to share with you, because you know, for Young we have many challenges to put our advocacy and our policies, but directly with you, I think it can be very interesting to share. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. How would you like to share those with me? Via email, or do you have a document to share around, or?
Okay, as we have already the document, it can be very interesting to share with you via email, but now I think it can be interesting to share just key points. The first point that I would like to share with you in the adaptation.
Pause. So at this point, right, that was like 2 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And how much time are negotiators going to have?
No, it can be very interesting at least 1 minute.
Yeah, so it was good though. You introduced yourself, you said who you were with, what you wanted to be a part of, then it took a little bit long to get to the point, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any other feedback? But still, wait a minute, clap. Great job for coming up here and trying.
So first of all, Justin, very cool that you volunteered to do this exercise, and I think I largely agree with what Haley said. What I liked about your intro is that I'm Justin, could I have a few seconds of your time? It's very difficult to say no to asking just a few seconds. You also said to talk about your intervention on adaptation, so you immediately make it personal. So I'd be interested. Okay, you heard my intervention. Cool, let's talk. And then what Haley said, it took you a bit longer to get to the point. So that's a bit of practice, but with that, I'm sure you'll do great. And by the end of this bond session.
Yeah. The only thing I would add is that always say your name accompanied by the institution that you represent or the country that you're here with. Don't, because she had to ask, oh, you're from Yongo, you're from like, where are you from? Because here we are more than just our name. We're all like representing something here. So automatically, if you say the name of the country that you're from or the institution or organization that you represent, like if I know someone from that country, then that's gonna give me confidence that like, if what you say is interesting, I can get a reference on you. I'd be like, oh, so-and-so, he's from this country. Have you met him? Do you know what, or the organization? So that's the only thing that I would ask. Other than that, yeah, everything that Bastian said, exactly. So thank you.
Good job. All right, we have like time for one more if there's any last person. If not, we're gonna wrap it up. Farzana, all right.
I do want to make, as you come forward, I do want to make an anecdote, and I'm so sad to see that so many people left. At COP28, a girl approached me after we went to Rule 16. She approached me and she asked for a few minutes of my time, and what she said is that she felt so sad with the outcome of the negotiations because she was from a group of parties outside of the G77 in China. And she said that she felt very discouraged with the outcome of Rule 16 and da-da-da. And I spoke to this girl for like 3 minutes, and I told her, please don't be discouraged. It's good that you have this view. It's very refreshing that you are trying to navigate, this. Diplomacy is hard, da-da-da. And she told me like, yes, but I am so disillusioned. I feel like I should change careers. And I said, but if you have that vision, you're exactly the type of people that we need. So please move forward and just try to find someone that could mentor you and accompany you. Find someone like-minded, So this 3 to 5 minutes conversation led to her writing me a very lengthy email months later telling me that she had, in fact, reached out to an organization in my country and she got a scholarship and an internship in that organization, which is dedicated to sea and coral restoration research. And she spent 3 months living in Punta Cana. And guess what? She also did an internship in my organization, and she sat next to me for 3 months. And I didn't even have a spare computer, so I switched to working exclusively in my laptop, and I lent her my own computer, because her effort from getting to her country, which is in this region, to my country, willing to follow her dream. I gave her my computer, I gave her my seat, I gave her everything I could so that this girl could thrive. So trust me, 5 minutes will really, really change your life.
That's so nice. And I think that goes to our point of negotiators are also people too, as well, in that a lot of times they also are, if you're disappointed, they're probably also disappointed, you know, and if you're excited, they might be excited, but hopefully it's really, really nice to see that you can share that with one another. So without further ado, do you want to introduce yourself?
Maybe we do it during this.
Go ahead. I hope that motivated you. Am I the negotiator? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Farzana. I'm with Women and Gender Constituency, and I'm from Bangladesh.
Oh, nice to meet you. How's it going?
It's nice. Actually, I have been following mitigation work program since the very beginning, and I really liked how you included women and gender for the global dialogue. And but I also wanted to ask, how is your view on the current situation, especially when there is so much divergence? But I also understand you might actually have to go.
Oh yeah, I'd actually love to talk with you about this. Do you mind exchanging emails and we can connect further?
Maybe we can connect in the WhatsApp. It's easy for
Oh yeah, perfect. I'm happy to give you my number.
Oh, thank you so much. I will text you.
Great.
And maybe I will also send some of our campaign stuff when we are on this.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yay! That was really great.
And this is just a recommendation. Remember, folks, WhatsApp has QR. So have that settings ready to scan that QR. That's all I would, because it's faster, and then it will take you automatically to add that person as a contact. But everything, you did great. You did really good. Yeah.
Yeah, I fully agree. You have a very friendly, warming appearance. That immediately makes it easier to engage. You were to the point, and I loved you taking out your phone and saying, "Oh, maybe we can exchange numbers." Mm-hmm. So you immediately have her contact details to follow this up. Very well done.
Yeah. That was really great. Go ahead, Prasanna.
One thing I learned recently, that actually showing your badge is easier because they can read your name, and reading actually helps to remember a name easier.
Yeah, that was really nice, especially because we all come from different cultures and places, and sometimes someone tells you their name and you're like, oh no, like I didn't quite get it, you know? So it says, oh, this is me, and it usually will show who you're with as well. So it was really great. Great job, Farzana. All right, well, thank you so much to our panelists for giving their excellent feedback. Yes, give it up. And for taking time out of their really busy days to come teach and help us. This is also on YouTube, I think, streamed, so you can always go back to it from there as well. So, and share it with your friends. This is a living, recorded video and also live tips from our amazing negotiators. So again, thank you so much, and thanks for having us. That's it. Yay. And again, thank you to the UNFCCC Youth for Capacity also for hosting and helping us organize this event. So shout out to you, Joy. Thank you so much. And yeah, now that's really it.